that we don't have the tools in our tool chest, our parenting chest, to support and help them. Whereas if a kid was interested in football, we could throw them in a football club. If they were interested in music, we could sign them up for music lessons, and we could have somebody take on the responsibility of nurturing that gift, right? So when it comes to psychic abilities, it's one of those unknowns, right? And most of you who are connected to these kids already are psychic. In fact, there is nobody on the planet that's not psychic. It's just that those of us that flex those muscles every day get better and better at it than those that don't. It's no different than going to the gym every day, right? So when it comes to children, the big disconnect is fear, right? So how many of you have a fear of the paranormal? Awesome, only one. That's amazing. Well done, you. Okay. For the most part, because it's such an unknown, it can be scary, especially when your kid's saying they're seeing somebody who's passed over. For those of us who have lost somebody close to us, a loved one, and a child is connecting and saying that they're sitting right next to you, it can be a blessing. It can be a lovely blessing, but we don't know how to sort of cope with how do we nurture that, or how do we help them to sleep at night? Because one of the biggest challenges psychic kids have is night terrors. So how many of you connected to those kids that had exceptional experiences experienced night terrors with their children? Yeah, and that's a big deal when you think about it. I can tell you from experience, and my daughter's going to kill me for this one, but night terrors were such a big deal at my house that my daughter slept with me till she was 13. So it can be invasive on the parent or the guardian. So it's one of those, challenging subjects that we want to learn more about, and how do we cope with it. So first and foremost, what we've sort of established at Psychic Kids United, which is the group that Sam was referring to that we're going to be launching. It's actually a Facebook page right now, so any of you who are connected to children and you're on Facebook, make sure you join Psychic Kids United, because you're going to get a lot of info there right off the bat. There is postcards at the back with the information on them, so make sure you pick one of those up. But when the website gets launched, there's going to be what we call an assessment, okay? This assessment is going to take a series of questions with your children, and it's going to give us a really clear-cut understanding of where they fall in the spectrum of psychic, okay? And we've sort of broken it down into 4 spectrums. You have your psychic kid, those that see the future. You have your mediumship kid, the kid that can see dead people, okay, spirit. You have your healers, those are the children who are compassionate about saving the world and helping people, or really sort of embracing illness or connecting to people and automatically knowing that something's not right with them. And then you have your empaths. And your empaths are the kids who sort of tether to everybody. So if there's any empaths in the room, which I know there already is, you're definitely going to be connecting to everybody in this room and feeling and absorbing everything that's happening to everybody in this room. So it can be an overwhelming experience when when you're a psychic, when you're a medium, when you're a healer, when you're an empath. It can be an overwhelming experience just being around people. So how many of those of you that know or are connected to children have problems taking your child out in public? Okay, and what about school? How do they deal with school? Not so good, right, for the most part? Okay, so this is because we are dealing with energy, okay? And that's basically what psychic work is. It's energy dealing, okay? You've probably heard of quantum physics, and those of you who haven't, it's basically dealing with energy. It's that energy is effortless and easy. You can connect anywhere in the world with somebody through thought, through energy, because it's effortless. It has no solid foundation, okay? So being psychic is basically the same thing. So I could connect with somebody that I don't even know in a store, for example, and automatically download information on that person. And if they're not having a good day, guess what I'm perceiving? Information that's not so pleasant. And if I'm working in the medium world and someone who's passed away, connecting to somebody who's a stranger to me, has somebody who's passed away, and let's say it was a horrific passing, they will show up and they will look the way they did when they passed, which isn't pleasant, right? So you can imagine what that does to a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old. It is overwhelming. And for the parent or guardian of those children, it's overwhelming too because you don't know how to deal with it. So let's get on with how to deal with it. Okay, so first and foremost, talking about it is so important. Do not foo-foo it away, and most of these kids will have imaginary friends. We've all had that, right? Show of hands, how many imaginary friends out there? Okay. So that's spirit energy, angel energy, it could be guide energy. They will be connecting with other sources to help them understand their gifts, but it's a sort of subconscious level situation. It's not like a conscious level. They just do because they're hanging out with these spirit energies because they just do, right? To us, it's no different than hanging out with one of our friends. So how do we cope with that? Basically, we want to really avoid using negative words. Things like, that's really weird, or you're creeping me out. We've all done that, right? The creep me out thing is a big deal. Or you're just making that up, or imaginary, that's your imaginary friend. Well, it's actually not imaginary, it's actually real. So we want to use, are you talking with your friend today? Instead of saying imaginary friend, because what we're doing is subliminally, we're setting a precedence with our child that it's a negative, that it's not real, that they're making it up, that kind of thing. So it's very important not to do that kind of thing, especially with little ones, okay? We want to embrace that gift and give them the freedom to express exactly who they are. And we also want to help, elevate their energy and their soul to be amazing, gifted young children, okay? And grow into wonderful, gifted adults. So with that, I was talking to somebody earlier who was having some difficulty at school, and right now we just started school back with a lot of the kids. And you probably have, those of you that are connected, especially to the younger ones, difficulty getting them to go. Does that make sense? Has that been something that you've experienced? Just getting them to get out the door, they'll be excited about school, and then as you're leaving the door, they become overwhelmed and they don't want to go anymore. Does that make sense? This is very common because they're about to walk into a place that is harboring tons of excitable, anxious energy, and they're already picking it up because they know it's going to feel overwhelming. So imagine, how many of you have done speaking like this? How many of you? For those of you that haven't done this, how do you think you would feel about getting up here and talking about a subject you know nothing about? It would be overwhelming, right? Like it would just be daunting. That's how those kids feel walking into the school with that kind of energy hitting them, and they have to present themselves normally, and that's overwhelming. Another challenge they will have is that they don't fit into a set group. That's a very common thing. I can tell you from my own experience, I had friends from each group, so the sporty group, the intellectual group, the musical group. I had connections with all of them, but I didn't belong to any of them. And that felt very, I felt very distant. I didn't feel like I belonged, which is something that these kids experience. They have this sense of not feeling like they belong, and that can be overwhelming. So this is basically why we've launched this program, to help kids feel like they belong to a group, because there is a big group of us out there, and it certainly will help enlighten their understanding of self, which is part of the plan. Okay, so I'm going to get on to, let's talk about psychic and what does that mean to a child. So a child that is opinionated, likely they will be opinionated, they will likely be in a place of just knowing. They'll just know stuff, and you'll be like, how do they know that? It's like they're 30 years old in the 5-year-old body, right? And they will have major, almost cheeky kind of comebacks for the parent or guardian or teacher. It'll be an absolute truth of knowing. An example would be my granddaughter. We were at a grocery store, and the girl that was at the checkout was putting the stuff through, and my daughter said hello, and the girl didn't answer, and she just kept going. So my granddaughter said, my mom said hello to you, right? And the woman still ignored her and kept going, and she goes, excuse me, and the lady stopped and went, yes. She goes, you're being very rude. So it's just like they can't help themselves but be authentic and real and call out people on stuff that, you know, seemingly is a human, you know, interactive. We should all be, you know, smile, at least try and smile with each other, right? And if somebody says hello to you, it's not that hard to say that. So you'll find that these kids are like that. They're very opinionated, but they're also exceptionally introverted for the most part. How many of you with these kids that you are connected to find that these kids are introverted? Okay, and so this is a huge, as parents, we want our kids to be out there and living life and experiencing friendship and joining groups, and they just have such difficulty doing that it alarms us a little bit, right? It makes us a little nervous. We want them to have a more fulfilling life. So one of the things I just want to bring up with that is give them a break. This is who they are. You're not going to change that, and they will come to sort of come out of their skin, so to speak, and be able to be in front of crowds like this. Because I can tell you personally, anybody that knows me personally, I am an extreme introvert. You would never guess that, would you? I am such an extreme introvert that if I could stay in my house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never leave it, I would be the happiest soul on the planet. But my job, my role in this life is to connect with people. So I am forced to be an extrovert. And that is how it is with the majority of exceptionally gifted kids. They are forced to be extroverted, and it's not pleasant. They have difficulty trusting people because they can pick up if somebody's not telling them the truth. And with parents, we will tell our children things to help them get through things. And sometimes it's not always the truth. I mean, we've all done it, right? Where we've sort of tried to push them, it's gonna be all right, don't worry, it's gonna be perfect, you're gonna have a great time, you're gonna meet lots of friends, that kind of thing, knowing full well that they're gonna have a difficult time because of their lack of, connectivity. This can be a challenge because the kids are picking this up from us right away, and we know they are, right? So it's be honest and speak authentically. That's what these kids need. And obviously, we want to give our kids that little extra boost and push them, but be aware that these kids will find their way on their own time, okay? Now, mediumship, it can vary, okay? So mediumship can be hearing the spirit voice of past over loved ones in their head, and seeing in the third eye area, or it can be a full-on apparition that they're connecting with, okay? And so either way, it's alarming, because if your kid's saying they're hearing voices, our initial thought is, what's going on here? Do I have a mentally challenged child here that I'm going to need to see a psychiatrist about? Because it can be initially a little alarming that way, and it's a stigma that we are wondering, are we, is this normal? And as a young child, it can be very overwhelming, especially with the full-on apparitions. That can be very alarming because we can see them, but nobody else can. And that's where the trust issue comes into play for most of these kids, because we're saying we see it, and everyone else is going, you're crazy. Doesn't exist. What are you talking about? So it's very important to ensure that you're open to suggestion. And I would recommend getting a book actually for all of the demographics of this psychic spectrum, and keeping a journal of the stuff that they say and or say they see. Because you'll be amazed, actually it wasn't until I started keeping a journal for myself, and anybody out there who is experiencing psychic moments, this is a really good exercise to do. Keep a journal of all the things that you experience, or you think you have a plan about something and you change your direction, you write that down. Anything that comes up that isn't the norm, you will find that typically what happens, you'll look at that book a week later and you'll see that half of the stuff that you predicted happened, or that you ran into those people that you were thinking about, that kind of thing, okay? So it's a good way to build confidence, not only for you as the parent or guardian, but you can say, you talked about that last week. This was something you brought up. Does this happen anymore? Like, did you see anything else further with that? And they'll be open to talk about it because kids are so authentic and they want to share, okay? And then I'm gonna move into, so I'm gonna get to the night terrors, I'm gonna get to that in a minute, but I wanna move into the healing and the empath. I'll sort of group those together because they are very similar, but they do have their distinct differences. But kids that are into the healing aspect, you're gonna see them very doting and very compassionate towards others, especially those that are ill, seemingly ill, or have disability, that kind of thing. These kids are beautiful little souls. They just want to put their hands on you. You will find it's one of the things that they want to hold your hand, and this is their way of sending you positive, beautiful energy. And you'll notice that's one of the telltale signs. Whereas empaths, they're like little mind readers, okay? These are kids who absorb your stuff immediately. So if you're a parent or guardian to a young child or 20 down, and you're in a emotional state, and you from work, and you come home and you're overwhelmed, and you walk through the door and you put a big smile on your face, like we're faking it, right? I'm good now, I'm home. That child will pick up immediately everything you went through that day. And that is such an overwhelming experience because seemingly mom and dad are smiling, but they just went through a challenge, and we know it, but they're not giving us why. So we will pick up that kind of stuff, empaths, when they go to school or when they go to a store. Imagine it like, I explain it to people this way, like an invisible umbilical cord coming from your belly button, okay? This gets a little foo-foo-y, but just run with me, okay? So this invisible umbilical cord comes out, and so I'm standing here connecting to all of you. This umbilical cord is connected. It splices out and connects to every single person in this room, okay? And an empath will start to download everything, seemingly everything from everybody, unless they cut the cord, okay? And I do the scissors, or I say I talk like an Italian, sorry to all the Italians in my life. But it's a way to cut yourself off of the impact of energy, because not only are you receiving energy, but you're also putting out energy to send love, attention, and affection to those that are in hurt feelings or overwhelmed feelings. They will be targets to victim energy, so anybody that's having a hard time in life, the empath is going to be the one that's going to raise them up. And they're very committed to seeing that through, so they will stick it out till the bitter end. They will give the clothes off their back, the food out of their fridge, money out of their pocket. They'll do whatever it takes to make somebody better. And that is, you'll see that with children where they want to maybe help kids do their homework, or they want to, have them over for dinner because they know they're not getting fed at home. So if your child is bringing that up with you a lot, can this person come for dinner? It's likely connected to that, okay? They just know something's going on at home, and they want to bring that child into their nurturing home, okay? So having a couple of tools in in the shed, like cutting the cord, being authentic and honest about what they're seeing and how they're expressing it to you, is going to make it a lot easier to be around these kids and give them an opportunity to express who they really truly are, okay? One of the other things we talk about, I want to talk about, is, especially for kids with night terrors, we put together a package of what's called a Sweet Dreams Sachet. And I have only a few left. So I have 2 here, and we're giving one away as a prize here tonight. So somebody is going to win it. Basically, it contains all the stones. I'll just read them out real quick to you. It contains an amethyst, saying it properly. It's protective, it treats insomnia, and brings restful sleep. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this one, but it starts with a C and ends with an E. That's all I'm going to say about that one. It prevents nightmares, especially in children. Desert Rose, it's protective, nurturing for children, and strengthens affirmations. The Lapis Lazuli, it is very protective and alleviates insomnia. And the Lepidite reduces stress and depression. Place this one under the pillow to help relieve them of sleep disturbances. A smoky quartz amplifies all other stones in grounding, which is a very important technique that we need to teach not only ourselves on a daily basis, but our children. I'm going to get to that. It alleviates nightmares. And lavender, a little sachet of lavender, because we heard Julie talk about the importance of lavender and sleep. It's essential. No pun intended, Julie. Relieves stress and promotes good sleep. So these are really handy to let kids play with, especially the younger ones. They will be drawn to stones, crystals. If you can take them to a store, I think in the area there's, what's Laura's and Tracy's? What is a spiritual spa? So I know she has some stones there in St. Catharines. There's the Willow's Den. There, Google, where can I find stones? But if you want, talk to me and we can get you the package deal. But definitely, places that sell them, you'll be able to get things like that. The importance of crystals and stones for children is they hold a high grade of energy, positive, beautiful energy, and not just for kids, but for adults as well. So, you yourself going to the store, you'll be drawn specifically to specific stones, and they always have the meaning of what the stone is, and you can see where you're at emotionally. It's amazing. It always blows me away. But these kids, I have a ton of these crystals all over my house. And my grandkids will come in and they will rearrange the stones. I was telling my aunt about this the other day. They will rearrange the stones in the house to amplify their energy. They don't know they're doing it, but they're doing it. And I'll have specific ones end up at my bedside table, one for me and one for their grandpa. And it's like, how did they know that, right? How do they know that stuff? They just do. It's amazing. So don't ever discount, even if they pick up a rock, and this is a cool story actually. My sister has a farm and out in Fawn Hill, and my granddaughter picked up a rock and went, here you go, Emma, this is for you. And I was like, thank you, that's lovely. But it was a really neat design on this rock. So we had it tested, and it came back, it was 10,000 billion. It was like a ridiculous number that I can't even recall, but it was like so old. It was predating, first man, predating dinosaurs. So it was amazing to think that she had picked out of all the stones that she could have drawn to, that was the one she got for me. So this is the kind of stuff, so never chuck out stones that they give you, because they're picking them up for you for a reason, okay? So in retrospect, when you have a child like this, the key really is about just letting them be themselves and not discounting what they're saying. A lot of, even adult psychics will have confusion about what it is they're seeing. So if they say something and it's a little off or whatever, you can help them by saying, well, what exactly are you seeing? And when I said about writing it down, you will find that they'll come back to you later and go, remember we were talking about that? And they'll give you a little bit more information. This brings me back to my granddaughter who came up with this, playing with this imaginary friend, and she was talking about her friend Poppy and how Poppy always was making a mess in her room. Now she was just about 2 and a bit, so she wasn't quite articulating sentences at this point. And she then started to, over a couple of months, she started to add to that Poppy's all wet, Emma. Poppy's so silly, why Poppy wet? And I'm like, I don't know, that's funny, right? Like, what's going on with Poppy? Why is she so wet? Then she would start saying, about a few weeks later, she would start talking about how Poppy's so silly, she leaves shoes in the water. Emma, why would Poppy leave shoes in the water? I'm like, I don't know. And that's when the penny dropped for me. And I kind of sort of put the dots together. Now I'm a psychic medium. You would think that this would have been something I clicked into right away. I knew that she was playing with some really special energy, but it wasn't about me. It was about her and this energy having fun together. So I didn't I wasn't picking up on who it was. But I have a brother who passed away, and he was 12 years old at the time. And his name is Bobby. So I finally turned to my granddaughter and I said, honey, are you saying Bobby? And she said, yes, Emma, Poppy. And I was like, okay. But I called my mom just because, you know, the skeptic, right? I'm the psychic, I'm a skeptic still. I called my mother and I said, Mom, when you got all your stuff back from Bobby, from the police because he had drowned in Chippewa, I said, did you get everything back? And she said, yeah, we got it. Oh, wait a minute, no, we never got his shoes back. That's the only thing we didn't get. So here is this amazing experience, and you'll find that likely the kids are playing with loved ones that you're connected to. So you can ask those questions, don't write it off. That's really the gist of it, okay? And if you have any questions going forward, like I said, take one of these, get in touch with us. The 3 of us are, you know, like Sam said, we have 100 years of experience between us, and made me feel really old when you said that. Really, really old. But we have the experience. We've all gone through different experiences, which is so cool because we bring so much to the table that way. But you're not alone, and we want you to know that your kids aren't alone, and hopefully we're going to create a space for them to be able to feel comfortable and part of a group. Okay? Was there any questions? Does that look like I'm supposed to wrap up here? Yes?
We're going to talk about the night terrors.
The night terrors, the stones are exceptional for night terrors. They ground the space. And actually, I know I kind of got off topic a little bit there. Grounding is an exceptional thing to do, not only for you, but for these kids. And meditation, I know it's not easy to get kids to meditate, but there is a great website called Grounded Roots. It's a great website too. It's called fragrantheart.com. Fragrant like the smell, heart like your ticker, okay? And they have guided meditation for children and for you. I really highly recommend that you do it. But grounding is something what Sandy, right? She had done at the beginning before she started the process with all of you, bringing your loved ones through. She did that grounding with all of you. It's that simple. It took 3 seconds, right? So if you can do it on a daily basis, ground yourself to the earth's core, and teach your children to do that, it's not a weird thing. See what I'm saying? It's just like a habit you got to get into. Okay? So, go ahead.
Why do you think they have night terrors?
Because they are experiencing overwhelming energy. They're like, think of it this way. A street lamp in the middle of the night in the summertime. It's a bright source of light. Millions of bugs are drawn to that light, right? That's all you see buzzing around a street lamp. Your child is that street lamp. And spirit energy, positive and negative, sees that street lamp and it's honing for it. It's a source of light. And that's why those of us who work in the industry, we get brighter and brighter, but we also have to ground and protect. And so protection, there's actually a video on the Facebook page where we go through 3 sources of protection. One is the tethering, the cutting the cord. One is imagine you have a suit of armor on and that anything that comes at you bounces off of you. And the other one is the bubble. Imagine yourself in like a, like kids blow those bubbles. Imagine stepping inside one of those bubbles and nothing can penetrate that bubble. And so we can sort of help kids, whichever one they sort of lean towards, giving them that information. Just, it helps immensely. But it's all about being open, not being in fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. We're actually a lot stronger and more powerful than any spirit energy that's out there. There's nothing to fear. But if you're in a place of fear or a place of victim, then that energy can overtake. And that's what we don't want, right? So it's be strong, be powerful yourself. You're human by default. You're way more powerful than any spirit energy.